So the great global quarantine of 2020 is upon us, and the powers that be over at movie studios have decided to graciously release a few movies on home video for us. How kind of them to not capitalize— $25! Anyway, one of those movies is Birds of Prey, a movie whose box office performance wasn't as bad as some people will make it out to be, but was still pretty meh. And honestly, that's garbage, because it's a great movie, and undoubtedly the DC movie I've enjoyed the most since The Dark Knight Rises. If you want a totally spoiler-free quick review, it's amazingly well directed and well shot. You'll laugh, you'll maybe cry, and the action is superb. Like really, really good. But this channel is all about in-depth analysis, because I have too much time on my hands and write this stuff, and you all have too much time on your hands and watch it. It's okay. No guilt here. Talking about movies is amazing. So for me, it's not enough to say that Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn is worth you watching. I also want to examine exactly why I think there were a lot of misconceptions about it, and why all those misconceptions are totally wrong. Because all in all, it's a fantastic movie, and you should watch it. So here are the 3 big reasons why you should absolutely watch Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey's action is outstanding. It has some of the best fight choreography, stunt work, and action cinematography that you can find on a modern film outside of the John Wick series. And it certainly tops anything else put together in recent DC or Marvel films. There's no over-reliance on CG here. There's no quick cuts that chop what is a 3-second long stunt into 5 or 6 shots, and there's certainly no Liam Neeson climbing a fence. This is impressive for several reasons. Firstly, it makes the flow of the action much smoother, and obviously that makes it easier for us as an audience to believe and enjoy it. Secondly, it means the film's actors have to do a lot of the stunt work themselves, and that's important because we can much more easily get invested into the emotion of a scene when the camera doesn't have to hide the fact that the actor isn't actually there. It sounds so basic, yet so few movies do it. But being able to see faces and hold those longer shots means that we get to have more great character moments in mid-action, instead of just before an action beat and just after. Like this sweeping shot of the Birds of Prey, where we see them kicking ass as a team for the first time. Not only does how this is filmed communicate how effective a team they are, it also shows us how much they're enjoying this moment. After spending the whole movie apart and alone, they've all found each other and a common goal, and we see how happy that makes them, all mid-action. There's even time for this great hair tie character beat.
Hair tie? Yeah.
And the action remains this impressive throughout the whole movie, but it's also something that was not clearly communicated in the film's marketing. Watch any of the Birds of Prey trailers and you'll see nothing but quick cuts, loud noises, and pretty much everything short of strobe lights. And I think that's one of the major reasons why this movie underperformed, and it's probably the one that gets talked about the least. The trailers did not sell it as what it was in any way. Especially since at its core this is an action movie, the fact that the commercials couldn't communicate the fantastic multiple set pieces throughout the film really speaks to a major failing in marketing. It's like the trailers were made for hardcore DC fans only, and as it turns out, that's the only audience who turned up to go see the movie. Birds of Prey deserved better, because for all of the previously mentioned reasons, it stands out as an action movie in an era when there's a new one on screen every week. Or, you know, back when we used to go to the movies.
But I wasn't the only dame in Gotham looking for emancipation. This is our story.
The second part of Birds of Prey's greatness is how it ties in its plot and its feminist themes. It is impossible to talk about Birds of Prey without mentioning the very weird backlash it got from a certain group on the internet. You know, the group that review-bombed it without ever watching it because, and I quote, "It's another example of Hollywood trying to shove feminism down everyone's throats." What's deeply ironic about the movie is that it is a feminist film, but never in any way that feels ham-fisted, and there's certainly never a scene that feels as weirdly performative as the all-female hero lineup from Endgame. Where Birds of Prey really succeeds as a story is in its plot, and how that story ties in with its feminist themes. There's almost zero excess fat in the film's narrative. Details that are mentioned early in the film invariably come into play by the end. Whether it's all of the people with grievances against Harley, who are set up in the first few minutes of the movie, or the fact that breaking the driver's legs had consequences that then affected both Montoya and Black Canary's stories, or even something as simple as a pickpocket picking up a grenade.
I took your ring!
It is an incredibly impressive example of a story that uses every element it introduces and makes sure that there are consequences to all of its characters' actions. Sometimes tragic consequences. Which, of course, brings us to the feminism. Let's be clear here, the reason the film navigates its feminist themes in a much less clumsy way than we typically see out of Hollywood is because of Kathy Yan as a director, Christina Hodson as a writer, and Margot Robbie as a producer. You know, 3 women. And the reason it ties in so well with the plot of the movie is that feminism and conflict in story are both driven by the same thing: an imbalance in power. Through the film's story, we see that the central conflict driving Harley is the desire to move on, not just from an abusive relationship, but from the fact that her entire identity had previously been shaped by the man in her life. She finally resolves this at the end when she strikes out on her own with a new apprentice in tow. The conflict driving Renee Montoya is of course that her male partner took all the credit for her work as a detective, twice, and that she is constantly belittled and mocked by her male colleagues.
Hey, it's Detective Montoya. Respect your elders. I mean, you're elderly.
Like Harley, at the end she resolves to strike out on her own with the newly formed Birds of Prey.
Oh, that as well. Thank you.
And speaking of workplaces, Black Canary's central conflict comes from the fact that even though she is a chosen favorite of Roman Sionis, she's a bystander to his abusive and murderous behavior. She ultimately makes the choice of standing up to him, growing both as a character and pretty much setting off the final battle of the film. There are a lot of smaller moments as well. The horrifically simple example being the guy who's trying to take advantage of a drunk Harley when she can barely stand, much less consent.
We're all good here.
This sparks Black Canary into action as she defends Harley and makes sure to drive her home safe. The conflicts driving the film's story and the characters are all rooted in issues where men abuse their power, but they never feel out of place because they directly tie to our main characters and their decisions throughout the film. The power imbalance of society, where men so often still are in and abuse positions of power over women, is what drives the story's conflict. And in doing so, it feels all the more empowering when our heroes enter into that conflict and kick some ass. It feels right. This is a feminist film, and that's actually what makes it so great.
Tacos? And I invested the cash in a little startup making waves in the East End.
I'm a motherfucking woman!
Leaving the action and the plot behind, where Birds of Prey truly shines is in its message, the point of the whole thing. At its core, this is a breakup movie. I mean, yes, it has a lot more mauling, maiming, and mobsters than most others in that category, but it is a breakup movie. When our story starts, Harley and the Joker have ended things for good, and this brings Harley's whole world to an end. She's built her entire identity as the partner to the Clown Prince of Crime. Beyond being the Harley Quinn, she doesn't know who she really is.
A Harley Quinn's role is to serve an audience, a master. You know, Harley Quinn's nothing without a master.
And she's not the only one going through a breakup. Montoya breaks up with her career in the police force, Black Canary breaks up with the mob boss who took her in, and Huntress, well, she kinda had a breakup with her family forced on her.
Yeesh, kebab. That is childhood trauma right there.
But all that intense, unhealthy rage also makes her the coolest damn character in the whole movie.
You are so cool.
So while other breakup movies don't have gorily grenaded gangsters, the big difference here is in the breakup's resolution. Watch your average rom-com and the heartbroken hero eventually gets over their breakup by finding someone else. I guess the message there is you do need someone else to be a whole person, just not that previous person. Which is, of course, totally fucking stupid, and it's a premise that Birds of Prey totally rejects. Instead, it opts for a message of self-actualization. The characters move on by discovering who they truly are and creating their own purpose. Over the course of the movie, we see all of our characters struggle with their own identities. They're forced to do things outside of who they want to be. Harley sells out Cassie Kane for protection. Montoya almost gives up on her pursuit of justice. And Canary repeatedly stands by as her boss does terrible things. It's only when they come together that they realize now is their time. They can embrace their individual journeys, and that puts them on the path of working together to kick some bad guy ass. So, when the movie closes, they get over their breakups by moving beyond them. Montoya, Canary, and Huntress all team up to fight for justice as the Birds of Prey. They don't need the police force, a mobster boss, or a quest for revenge in their lives. They've found a purpose of their own, one that fulfills them as people without relying on the direction of someone else. And it's much the same for Harley, though with a bit less justice and a bit more of a selfish, chaotic energy. After all, she is the bad guy. Duh. Where she starts the movie haunted by an identity she'd built around someone else, she ends the film having crafted her own. After the events of the story, she now knows that she's strong enough to stand on her own. So that's exactly what she does, using a pawned, stolen diamond to start a business with the best young pickpocket in town. And these badass motherfuckers aren't gonna let anyone stand in their way. So it's the sum of its parts, and especially with that message, that makes Birds of Prey a movie that's truly worth watching and rewatching. It's fun and chaotic. The action is intense and impactful. It has something to say about society in a way that's clear and that doesn't involve extended creepy dance sequences. But most importantly, it teaches its viewers that in life it's up to them to find and make their own meaning. Looking to someone else for answers, whether it's an institution or a significant other, isn't the way to go. What truly fulfills us as people is discovering who we are on our own terms and choosing to follow our own paths. And it's when we do that we can finally chow down on our favorite egg sandwich. So for this end bit, I'm gonna walk you through how to make the perfect egg sandwich from the Birds of Prey movie. But to do that, you're gonna need an upgrade on old Julian. It's me, Papa Giuliano. Oggi andiamo a fare il egg sandwich dai film Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. But to teach you to do this, firstly, of course, we must go through the ingredients list. Prima, remember, you will need lots and lots of bacon. You will also need 2 wonderful eggs, 2 slices of disgusting orange American cheese, 2 slices of warm, crispy toasted bread, and of course, don't you forget, la salsa. But the most important ingredient here is the butter. Now, if you follow the American recipe, they will tell you to use unsalted butter. This is because a lot of Americans like to think of things like salt and pepper as spicy. We call those people testa di cazzo. In Italian, testa di cazzo means very smart person. But even though they are very smart, they are wrong about this. When it comes to cooking, unless you have a pre-existing medical condition, more salt is always better. So the first thing you are going to need to do is grab a frying pan, just like Nonna used to hit me with. Secondly, you turn on the stove top to medium heat. Then you drop in some delicious salted butter and put on the rashers of bacon. Once the bacon is good and cooked, you remove it and put it to the side for later. Then, to make sure you absorb all that juicy fatty goodness, you take your 2 slices of bread and you put them down in the pan so they absorb all that flavor. And remember, it's very important, bread side down. Once the bread has absorbed all the flavor, remove it from the pan and begin to cook your eggs. Once they are nice and fried, add on the disgusting orange American thing that they call cheese. Once that is all quite ready, put the bread normal side out into the frying pan too. Put on the bacon, put on the eggs, let it toast on both sides for just a little bit, and then you remove. And of course, the final touch, the hot salsa. Flip the whole thing together, and ecco, you have yourself the beautiful egg sandwich from Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. So, how's about to give it a taste, huh? Miracoloso. I understand why she went crazy for it. In a way, it's a bit of an oxymoron because it feels disgusting in my mouth, but it tastes amazing. Buon appetito. So there you have it. Now you know how to make the egg sandwich from Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. And remember, if you want more recipes, subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to support me, there's a Patreon clickable thing somewhere nearby. But the most important lesson you can learn today is if ever you meet someone you think is really, really smart, you should tell them in Italian, look them right in the eye and tell them testa di cazzo. And they will appreciate it.